Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to take your source material and really pull out the most important insights just for you.
That's the goal.
And today, we're plunging into something pretty fascinating, actually. It's a text from way back in 1910. W.D. Wattles, The Science of Being Well.
Yeah, a classic from that New Thought era.
Right, but if you're picturing some, dry medical book, that's not it at all. Wattles pitches this as a practical guide.
Mm-hmm. A manual, really.
Yeah, claiming a scientific approach to health, but based on these, pretty radical ideas about the universe and what humans are capable of, especially for 1910.
Definitely radical for the time. He cuts right to the chase.
So our mission here is to unpack his core ideas. We want to understand what he calls his certain way of thinking and living.
And see what takeaways stand out.
Exactly. What nuggets are in there that might still, make you think today. We'll look at his big claims about the mind's power, his very specific rules for eating and breathing. Some might seem a bit odd now.
Oh, definitely specific.
And just his whole framework for achieving what he calls perfect health.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
Sounds good. And like you said, he's direct. He states right off, this is a handbook, not philosophy. For people who want health now.
Not just theorizing.
No. He wants to explain how to use this universal principle of life simply. It's all grounded in this monistic idea that everything comes from one single substance. Mind, matter, life, all of it.
One source for everything.
Yep. And if you accept that starting point, he argues, the method just follows logically, and he really stands by it. Claims it's been tested with continuous and unfailing success.
Unfailing success. Okay, that's bold. Setting the bar high. So starting from this one substance, this universal principle, where does he kick off his science of being well? What's the absolute base layer?
Okay, the fundamental claim is this. Health is just the perfectly natural performance of function. Simple as that.
Natural performance. So like the body just doing its job properly.
Exactly. And this natural performance comes from the natural action of what he calls the principle of life. Or, more specifically within us humans, the principle of health.
Ah, okay. So the power, the engine for health, it isn't something you need to, find outside. It's already in you.
That's the core idea. He says everything is made from this single living substance. It's everywhere, permeates everything.
The source of all life.
Right. And, crucially, inside every person, this substance contains this built-in principle of health. It's inherent.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for me. If this principle is inside us, this power, how do you switch it on? How do you actually use it?
Right. Well, according to Wattles, you bring this principle of health into constructive action by thinking in a certain way.
Thinking in a certain way. That phrase keeps coming up.
It's central, and he tries to back this up. He points to, all the different healing systems back then, like allopathy and homeopathy.
Well, it's the totally opposite methods,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Both claiming cures for the same things using completely different, sometimes contradictory remedies. How could both work if the power was in the pill or the potion?
Good point. It suggests the power isn't in the remedy itself.
That's his argument. He also uses that old story, maybe apocryphal, about the saint's bones being swapped with a murderer's bones.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
Well, people kept coming to touch the bones thinking they were the saints, and they still experienced these miracle healings, even though they were touching the murderer's bones.
Wow. So the healing wasn't in the bones at all.
It was in the people. Their faith, their belief, consciously or unconsciously, activated this internal principle of health they already had. That's the conclusion Wattles draws.
That's actually quite profound. The power to heal is within us, activated by something internal, like our faith or belief. Okay, so this leads to the first practical step in his certain way of thinking. It's mental. What exactly is what to think?
Right. The very first thing you have to do is form a clear mental image. He calls it a conception of health.
Like visualizing yourself healthy.
Yes, but it's more than just a static picture of looking well. He really emphasizes this.
It needs to be active, dynamic.
Exactly. Your conception has to include thinking of yourself doing things, like how a perfectly strong and healthy person would do them.
So picturing yourself walking with energy, working without getting easily tired, that kind of thing.
Precisely. Doing things with a surplus of vitality. And just as important, you have to actively stop thinking about yourself doing things in a weak or sickly way. No mental rehearsal of limitations.
So you're actively impressing this image of a healthy, capable you onto your mind. He talks about a mind-body connection here, doesn't he?
Yes, very much so. He argues the physical body is permeated by this intelligent substance, the original substance or mind stuff.
Okay.
And the functioning of this mind body, he claims, is controlled by your thought. So imperfect thoughts, thoughts of disease or limitation, if you impress those, they cause disease.
And thoughts of perfect health.
Cause healthy functioning. He believes this intelligent substance within you literally rebuilds the body, cell by cell, according to the thought forms you consistently hold.
Okay, this next bit feels pretty challenging maybe, especially now. Wattles strongly advises against studying the physiology or hygiene of his day, 1910.
Right. That's often a sticking point for people.
Why? Why tell people to ignore the medical science available?
Well, it flows directly from his core principle. Thought creates form. He believed the medical science back then was flawed, imperfect, and crucially, it focused heavily on describing diseases, limitations, what could go wrong.
So reading about it fills your head with.
Exactly. Thoughts of sickness, weakness, dysfunction. And since thought impresses itself on this mind body, constantly thinking about disease, even just studying it, would actually produce those conditions in you. That was his fear.
He used an example about fasting, didn't he? To show how belief influenced outcomes.
He did. He pointed out that old physiology texts said humans could only live about 10 days without food. And people who believed that, when they were deprived of food, often did die around that 10-day mark.
Whoa.
But then you had people like Dr. Tanner who fasted for 40 days. And Dr. Dewey did experiments showing people could go much longer.
So Wattles concluded
That how long they survived wasn't about some fixed physical law, but about what they were taught and believed their bodies could handle. Their thoughts, shaped by what he saw as bad science, literally limited their physical endurance.
Wow. Okay, so the insight is he believed even just knowing about disease or limitations could impress those realities onto your body. The focus has to be 100% on the conception of perfect health.
Absolutely. Drop all investigation into current symptoms, causes, potential outcomes. All mental energy goes to forming and holding that conception of health.
Got it. So the mental actions are form that clear dynamic health picture, connect every thought about yourself to that ideal, and instantly kick out any thought of sickness by replacing it with one matching your health conception, trusting that the substance inside rebuilds you accordingly.
That's the essence of the what to think part, but just having the thought isn't enough.
Right, you need to connect to it. Which brings us to faith. What role does faith play here? How does it activate this internal principle?
Faith is, well, it's everything. It's the key that turns the ignition, that moves the principle of health into action.
And without faith?
Without faith, you're left with doubt and fear. And Wattles argues that doubt and fear directly connect your mind to disease. They impress thoughts of disease, making those manifest in your body.
So doubt and fear aren't just feelings. They're like negative creation tools.
That's exactly how he frames it. The potency, the actual creative power of any thought comes from the faith you put into it.
It's the thought of health, if you don't really believe it.
It's impotent. It does nothing. But a thought of disease, even a fleeting one, if it's backed by fear or doubt, which is a kind of faith in the negative, that thought has power and will shape your condition. So you have to actively cultivate faith in health.
Okay. What specific beliefs does he say you need to build that faith? It's not just vague hope, right?
No, it's quite specific. First, believe in the one thinking substance as the absolute source of all health. Second, believe its intention, its thought for humanity is always perfect health.
Okay.
Third, believe that your thought has real power over your own body's functioning. And fourth, believe you're basically swimming in an ocean of health power from this substance, and it's ready for you to tap into through faith.
An ocean of health power. I like that image. And how do you apply this faith personally? It's got to be more than just general belief, right?
Oh, absolutely. It has to be personal and it has to be present tense. You must assert, I am well right now.
Not, I hope I get well, or I'm working on getting well.
No, claim perfect health as a current actual fact in your life now.
I am well. That feels really powerful, almost like you're commanding it into being.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
And it demands that your actions match your words. If you're claiming perfect health mentally, your physical posture and attitude have to align.
So walk briskly, stand tall, chest out, that kind of thing.
Exactly. If you catch yourself slumping or moving weakly, you have to change it instantly. Refuse to act sick if you're thinking well. You back up the thought with the physical stance.
That makes sense. Mind and body reflecting each other. Where does gratitude fit into all this? Seems like a demanding state to maintain.
Gratitude is huge for Wattles. He presents it as a powerful aid to applying faith. You should be deeply, genuinely grateful to the great intelligent substance, or God, for the perfect health you are already enjoying right now.
Even if you don't physically feel perfect yet.
Especially then. He argues it's not just a nice feeling. Gratitude strengthens your faith and connects you harmoniously with the Supreme, the source of that health power.
So it's like a feedback loop.
Exactly. And it's practical, too. If a thought of disease pops into your head, you immediately counter it by claiming, I am well, and then thanking God for the perfect health you have. It shuts down the negative thought and reinforces your connection to the positive source.
Okay, so faith and gratitude unlock the power. What about the will? We often think about willing ourselves to be better. How does that work here?
This is a really key distinction Wattles makes. You do not use your will to try and force your internal organs to work right, or to fight off disease directly, or battle some external negative force.
So you're not gritting your teeth and commanding your cells.
The principle of health inside you, guided by your thoughts of health, handles all the internal mechanics. And Wattles insists there are no unfriendly external forces trying to make you sick. The one force is always making for health.
So there's nothing outside yourself to overcome.
Nothing external, no. The only thing you need to overcome is your own habit of thinking about disease, weakness, and limitation.
Ah, okay, so the will isn't for fighting, it's for focus.
Precisely. You use your will to control your attention. You decide what you're going to think about. You actively will to believe the truths about health he lays out. When those old thoughts or suggestions of sickness come up, you use your will like a muscle to immediately shift your focus back onto your conception of health.
Like changing the channel mentally.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And he says if you're struggling, use gratitude. Give thanks for the health you have, claim it. And that act of gratitude actually strengthens your will to keep your thoughts on track.
Okay, that makes sense. And this connection you build through gratitude and focused thought, it also brings wisdom and physical energy.
Yes. By consciously aligning your mind with the Supreme, the All-Mind, you start to receive wisdom, not just book knowledge, but this intuitive sense of truth, right judgment, knowing how to manage yourself, especially regarding health choices.
But there are conditions for that inflow.
Right. Your overall purpose in life needs to be aligned with what he sees as the Supreme's purpose, basically. Aiming for your best development on all levels. Physical, mental, spiritual, but without unhealthy excess in any area. And crucially, you need to operate from a creative or goodwill plane.
Meaning?
Avoid anger, selfishness, antagonism. He specifically calls out the competitive mindset, always trying to beat others, saying it actually blocks this inflow of wisdom and power from the Supreme. You need to be constructive, not competitive.
Interesting. And the vital energy part, how does that connect?
The energy from the formless substance, the source, is unlimited. You're always receiving some, but you can consciously draw in more. He gives the example of a runner hitting the wall, getting that second wind.
Right. How does he explain that?
The runner is exhausted, but keeps going, keeps running in a certain way. They maintain absolute faith that more strength will come. They think only of strength, act as if they have it, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other.
Faith, thought, action.
Yes. That combination, unwavering faith, clear purpose, finishing the race, and continued action connects them directly to the infinite energy source for a fresh supply. He says it's the same for health. If you have faith, a harmonious purpose, and perform the necessary actions in the certain way, you tap into this unlimited vital energy for healing and strength.
Okay, wow. So the mental and intentional framework is huge. Form the health conception, think only health, have absolute faith. It's real now. Practice deep gratitude for it. Use your will purely to control attention, maintain a balanced life purpose, and cultivate goodwill.
That's the internal engine. But Wattles is crystal clear. This engine needs the right fuel and maintenance. The mental work must be backed up by corresponding actions.
You can't just think healthy thoughts while, I don't know, living on junk food, never moving.
Exactly. He says living wrongly in the basic physical functions prevents health, no matter how perfectly you think. Your physical life has to harmonize with your mental claim of perfect health.
Okay, so let's get into these external voluntary actions. Eating, drinking, breathing, and sleeping. Starting with eating, he has some very specific rules here. Don't they seem a bit intense?
They are quite specific, yes. The absolute core principle for when to eat is only eat when you have what he calls an earned hunger.
Earned hunger, not just regular hunger.
He makes a sharp distinction. Hunger, for him, is the genuine subconscious call from your body for building materials. It signals a real need and the digestive power to handle the food. He describes it as a pleasant anticipatory feeling, usually in the mouth and throat.
Okay, and appetite.
Appetite is different. That's just a desire for sensation, maybe a craving for something sweet or spicy, or just the habit of eating at a certain time. It's mental, not physical need.
So true hunger is the body asking, appetite is the mind wanting. And he claims you never have real hunger right after waking up from sound sleep.
That's his stance. He argues that sound sleep finishes assimilation, vitalizes you. You don't need food immediately unless maybe you went to bed starving. That's standard early breakfast. Purely habit and appetite, in his view.
Wow. So the insight here is really trust the body's signal, this earned hunger, and ignore everything else like clocks or habits. He actually promoted the no breakfast plan.
Explicitly. He says it's right for everyone because hunger has to be earned through work, physical or mental. He figures noon is usually the earliest. Most people would feel genuine hunger.
And the rule is absolute. Never eat if you're not truly hungry.
Absolutely. Even if you feel weak or think you should eat for energy, he insists food eaten without earned hunger can't be properly used and just causes problems. He goes so far as to say it's better to fast even if you are hungry than to eat when you're not hungry.
That's a strong statement. Okay, so trust earned hunger for when? What about what to eat? Does he lay out some complex diet plan?
Surprisingly, no. It's the opposite. He basically says the eternal intelligence, or nature, has already figured this out. His advice: eat the staple foods of the geographic area where you live.
Oh, the basics. What people in your region traditionally eat.
Pretty much. He dismisses all the dietary debates of his time. Vegetarianism, raw foodism, focusing on specific nutrients. He saw it all as confusing human invention. He says, have faith in nature's guidance, which you can see in the common, staple foods that have sustained populations for generations.
So less focus on specific health foods and more on traditional staples.
Right. He uses an analogy. A hardworking woodchopper needs a large quantity of plain, solid food, maybe pork and beans. A sedentary banker needs much less quantity.
Okay, that makes sense.
But he argues, if both only eat when they have genuine earned hunger, they'll likely desire the same kind of simple, staple foods. Indigestion, he claims, doesn't come from the type of food if it's a staple and you're hungry, but from eating too much quantity just to satisfy appetite or cravings.
So the takeaway is, if you only eat common staples when you have earned hunger, your natural taste will guide you correctly. Don't overthink it, don't chase fads, just eat what you genuinely want from the basics when truly hungry.
That's the gist. Trust earned hunger plus staple foods. Now, how you eat is also critical.
Okay, how should we eat?
Chew every single mouthful until it is completely liquid. No exceptions. He says this is vital for digestion.
Thorough chewing. Got it. Anything else?
Yes, and this is key. Concentrate your attention only on the taste of the food while you're eating.
Just the taste, not thinking about work or problems or even the mechanics of chewing.
Exactly. No distractions. He wants you fully present, enjoying the taste. Eat with cheerful confidence, knowing it's the right food because you're hungry for it, and trust it will digest perfectly. Avoid too much conversation.
Sounds like mindful eating.
Very much so. And he says you need to use your will here to fight the common habit of bolting food, down which he links to fear, rushing, or just being mentally elsewhere. Keep bringing your mind back to the taste, the process.
Okay, mindful chewing focused on taste. And finally, how much should you eat?
Stop eating the very instant you begin to feel your hunger lessening or abating.
The instant it starts to fade, not when you feel full.
No, the moment it starts to subside. That, he says, is the clear signal from your subconscious mind that you've had precisely enough. Anything you eat after that point is purely for taste or appetite gratification. It's excess and it causes problems.
So no stuffing yourself.
Definitely not. Never gorge. He specifically warns against eating desserts or sweets after your actual hunger is satisfied just out of habit or for pleasure. He argues that if you're truly eating for earned hunger, plain, simple food will taste better than anything else anyway.
Wow. Okay, summing up eating. Wait for earned hunger, eat common staples, chew till liquid focusing only on taste, and stop a second hunger starts to decrease. That's remarkably disciplined. It really hinges on accurately reading your body's signals.
Which he believes you can do accurately, but only if you're living according to these principles generally. It all interconnects.
Makes sense. Okay, eating covered. What about drinking? Is that as complex?
Much simpler. Ideally, just water. Drink only when you are genuinely thirsty.
Again, listening to the body's signal.
Exactly. And stop drinking the moment your thirst is gone. He says occasional weak coffee is okay, but avoid sugary drinks, artificial stuff. Just obey thirst, drink water. Simple.
Okay. Breathing. That's mostly automatic, isn't it?
The act itself, yes, but Wattles says you control the manner and the conditions. First, the manner. Keep your physical breathing mechanism in good shape. That means a straight spine, a flexible chest.
Good posture.
Right. He notes how work in modern life tend to make people stoop, which restricts breathing. He even recommends a specific exercise. Stand up straight, tall, inhale fully, really stretch the chest and spine upwards, then exhale easily. Do this often during the day to counteract slouching and ensure you can breathe fully.
Makes sense. And the conditions.
Yeah.
Like the air itself.
Absolutely critical. Breathe pure air. He is adamant about avoiding bad air. Air that's been rebreathed is stagnant or contaminated.
What if your home or workplace has bad air?
His advice is blunt. Move or get a different job. He ties this back to his science of getting rich ideas. You have a right to the resources needed for full life, including good air.
So prioritize pure air like you prioritize food.
Yes. He considers air a vital food, permeated with the living substance, with life itself. He says you should consciously recognize this life-giving quality when you inhale. The key insight. Do everything you can to maximize your intake of pure, vital air, both by keeping your body open and ensuring your environment provides it.
Got it. And the last voluntary action? Sleeping.
Sleep is when your vital power gets renewed. And for this to happen properly, he insists on one main condition. Unlimited, fresh, pure outdoor air.
Open windows wide.
As wide as possible. Get cross-ventilation if you can. Even if it's freezing cold, pile on the blankets, wear warm clothes, but get the fresh air. Stagnant indoor air prevents proper vitalization during sleep, he believes. You need to sleep in the living atmosphere.
And mentally, how should you approach sleep?
Go to sleep with the firm mental attitude that sleep is an infallible vitalizer. Believe it's a process where you connect directly with the principle of life for renewal and rebuilding. Set that intention.
Okay, so the voluntary actions wrap up. Eat based on earned hunger, chew mindfully, stop at the first sign of sufficiency, drink water for thirst, keep posture open, breathe pure air consciously, sleep in tons of fresh air, believing in its power.
That's the package. Perform these simple, natural actions consistently with the right mental framework, and you align yourself with the principle of health.
Now, Wattles knew people would run into questions or obstacles. We mentioned avoiding medical books, but he really emphasizes cutting off negative input, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah. He hammers on avoiding doctor books, medical journals, getting tangled in different disease theories. He truly believed they just load your mind with negative images and fears, which undermines faith and actually creates the conditions you're worried about.
He basically says, my book is all you need.
Pretty much. He claims if you follow his principles strictly, you have all the info required and it cannot fail. The takeaway is stark. Guard your mental space fiercely against any thoughts of disease, wherever they might come from.
And this extends to how you interact with other people, too, especially if you're complaining about being sick.
Yes. He advises you to hold others in thoughts of health as well, but crucially, do not sympathize with their complaints or detailed symptoms.
Don't engage with the sickness talk.
Right. Politely change the subject or just excuse yourself. Don't let yourself be, as he puts it, poisoned by disease thought from others. He thought if everyone refused to dwell on sickness talk, the world would literally get healthier faster.
Maintain your healthy mental bubble, essentially.
That's the idea. Protect your focus.
Okay, but what if someone following this is experiencing actual physical pain? That's hard to ignore. How does Wattles suggest handling that?
His advice is counterintuitive. Do not resist the pain. Don't fight it. Instead, recognize it as the principle of health already at work inside you, actively overcoming some unnatural condition.
So pain is a good sign, a sign of healing.
Exactly. He frames it positively. Mentally, you should cooperate with it. You can use simple external aids, like hot compresses maybe, if they seem to assist the process. But the main thing is internal. Focus on gratitude for the health power that's active, even though it feels like pain, and have faith that the pain will stop once the healing work is done. Keep your mind on the principle of health, not the sensation.
Reframing pain as positive action. Okay, what about weakness? If you start this certain way but feel weak, maybe because you're changing habits?
He says don't push yourself beyond your current strength, especially at first. Rest when you feel you need to.
Be gentle with yourself.
Yes, but with the right mindset. He assures you that your strength will increase daily as you continue living this way. During rest periods, consciously exercise faith and gratitude, understanding you're in a transition phase, moving towards greater vitality. Trust the process.
Okay. What about common issues like constipation or elimination problems?
He believes that natural, regular elimination is simply a result of living scientifically according to his rules. If problems persist initially, he concedes that a temporary internal flush might help ease the mental fear associated with it, giving you peace of mind.
But it's not the long-term solution.
No, ultimately, you have to trust the principle within you to normalize function. Once you start living the certain way consistently, he says, just dismiss the whole issue of constipation from your mind. Trust that the internal intelligence is handling it. Don't focus on the symptom.
Again, trust the principle over the symptom. What about exercise? Is he big on workouts?
He thinks daily muscle use is good, yes, but he wants you to get it through enjoyable activities, play, amusement, recreation.
Like gardening, sports, dancing, things you actually like.
Exactly. Not forced, grim exercise routines done only because you think you have to for health. His insight is, exercise because you are healthy and enjoy moving. Integrate it naturally and joyfully into life. Don't see it as a chore you must do to become healthy.
That feels more sustainable. And lastly, long fasts. We heard the Tanner example, but does he recommend people undertake extended fasts for healing?
Generally, no. He thinks they're seldom, if ever, necessary if you're living correctly. He suspects that when people feel their hunger disappear during long fasts, it's often driven by fear, expectation, maybe things they've read.
Not a true physiological signal.
Not usually, in his view. He says if nature does genuinely take away your hunger signal for a period, just continue cheerfully with your life and work. Don't force food. Eat only when genuine, earned hunger returns, even if that takes several days. Having confidence, he says, prevents discomfort during that abstinence.
So if you live scientifically, earned hunger should return regularly anyway.
That's his point. True earned hunger will guide you, and long planned fasts just won't be needed. Always come back to listening for that earned hunger signal above all else.
Okay, we've covered a huge amount, from the cosmic one substance down to chewing your food. Let's try to quickly wrap up the essence of the science of being well.
All right, the absolute core. There's one universal living substance. Inside every person, there's an inherent principle of health, always aiming for perfect function. And crucially, this internal principle is controlled and activated by your thoughts and your corresponding voluntary actions.
And the key steps, the certain way and action.
Mentally. Form that sharp, dynamic conception of perfect health. Think only thoughts aligned with it, backed by unwavering faith that this health is your reality now. Practice deep gratitude for receiving this health. Use your will deliberately, but only to control your attention and keep it fixed on health thoughts. Maintain goodwill and a balanced life purpose. And then, physically. Perform those basic voluntary functions, eating, drinking, breathing, sleeping in the perfectly natural, healthy way he prescribes. Wait for earned hunger, chew to liquid focusing on taste, stop the moment hunger starts to fade. Drink water only for thirst. Breathe pure air consciously with good posture. Sleep in abundant fresh air, trusting its revitalizing power.
And Wattles' claim is that living and thinking consistently in this certain way activates that internal principle of health, which is powerful enough to heal anything and lead to perfect sustained health. And importantly, he says anyone can do this.
Yeah, what's really striking is how radically different this is from, well, most approaches then and even now. This idea that perfect health isn't primarily found in complex medical science or external treatments, but hinges on this internal power, the principle of health, that you activate through alignment of thought, faith, gratitude, will, and these very simple natural actions. It's a whole system built from the ground up on his specific view of reality.
Absolutely. And if we just zoom out for a second, we connect this to the bigger picture, it definitely makes you wonder, doesn't it?
Right.
We live in a world just saturated with information about sickness, constantly searching for the next external cure, analyzing disease in minute detail. What could be the potential impact? Maybe not just physically, but mentally, spiritually, if you truly believed, and more importantly, acted, as if the primary power for your health resides fundamentally within you, guided by these kinds of simple, universal principles Wattles talks about. It's something to think about. Maybe even something to experiment with, perhaps in small ways in your own life.
It certainly offers a different lens, an interesting perspective to hold alongside, everything else we know today.
Definitely food for thought. Well, that's our deep dive for today. We really hope this exploration of W.D. Wattles, The Science of Being Well, has given you some valuable nuggets to consider.